Hello students, today we're going to talk about lightening dark images, which will sometimes happen when you go out and shoot in the evenings for event shoots and such. As normal, you will begin by going to File and Browse and Bridge. So that this comes up, you'll go in through your Y drive to your photography, your period, your name, the month, and the tutorial folder where you initially copied all of those pictures. And we'll go ahead and double click on that dark image that you would like to lighten. Now there are several ways that you can lighten an image, and some look better than others, but most of the time it's simply just about trial and error. I also want to talk today about doing something called renaming layers, which can be helpful for you as you try to figure out which layers belong to what formatting and imaging that works. Okay, so now you see your layers palette over here, which we've discussed before. I actually want to duplicate this layer multiple times. One time, two times, and we'll do three times. Okay. And what I want to do is this. I want to turn off the eyeballs on all of the layers except for the one that I'm currently working on. I'm going to call this first one Brightness Contrast. Okay. And if you simply go to Image, Adjustments, and Brightness and Contrast, you now have a menu that pops up with a slider. And from here you can decide how to brighten your image, but to add the contrast back in so as not to lose your color. And you can put it wherever you like to make sure that it looks as good as you think you want it to. Go ahead and hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to turn this eyeball back on this background layer, which you're not going to see anything unless I turn this eyeball off. The eyeballs help decide which layers you're looking at. Instead of like in Word or Publisher or another document where you would do bring to front, send to back, everything has to do with the order that the layers appear. So I'm going to turn that eyeball off. There's my original picture, and here it is with brightness and contrast. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn that brightness and contrast off. I want to see what hue and saturation might look like. So I'm going to click on this copy here so I can rename it, and I'm going to call this one Hue Saturation and hit Enter. I'm also going to again go to Image, Adjustments. This time I'm going to go to Hue and Saturation. This gives me another set of bars where I can decide I can lighten up my image a little bit, but again it lightens it pretty much across the board. I can give it a little bit more color, but I can also change the color, which I don't necessarily want to do. But sometimes if you're trying to colorize something a little bit more, this is where you might do that. So I'm going to say, okay, I think it looks decent there, and I'll leave it. And now let's compare it by turning this eyeball on and off to the background layer, the original. But now you can compare it to, is the brightness and contrast better? I don't know. So we'll come back, we'll turn those two eyeballs off. Then the last thing I'm going to do is shadow highlight. I like this one in particular because I feel like automatically a dark image gets to be around the right shade of brightness. So I'm going to turn this eyeball on to make sure that I can see the changes that I make. I go to Image, Adjustments, and I will go to Shadow Highlights, which is down at the bottom. Almost immediately as the slider bar comes up, you'll see a difference in the image. And usually I just kind of click OK. I'm like, ooh, that looks fine right there. Now again, it looks a little bit poster, it's a little bit kind of a sketch there, but it does do the trick. It does. So now we can see the difference between the before and after of this, again, by turning on or turning off the eyeball. So I apologize. Okay, so the eyeball is off. There's our original. I click on Shadow Highlight, and you can tell the difference. So again, you can look and see, you can judge for yourself. What do you like best, the brightness contrast, the hue and saturation, or the shadow highlight? You could choose also to somehow combine all three of these by working them all on here. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to duplicate this background layer one more time, and I'm going to actually rename it right here, Auto. Okay. Sometimes the auto settings work. I caution you that sometimes they'll make your pictures look a little bizarre. So go to Image, you have Auto Tone, Auto Contrast, and Auto Color. I'm going to go to Auto Contrast first because that's similar to our brightness and contrast. If it were to decide itself what it would look like, and it's taking my computer a minute here to render, this is what it might look like. If you want to auto color it, wow, kind of makes it a shade of blue. Probably not what we want, so I'm going to go to Edit and undo Auto Color. Image and Auto Tone. This actually tries to white balance based on what it sees as white in the picture. And again, it doesn't make much of a dramatic difference to that image there, not nearly as much as the Auto Color did. So you have options here, and you will actually probably use some of these techniques more often than you might think, because you will tend to, time and again, usually in event shoots or night shoots, have images that you need to fix. Now the last thing that I want to show you, and there really isn't a particular spot in this particular picture that's kind of out of focus, or at least that you can tell, I want to show you how you can sharpen an image. Now there is an actual sharpening button over here somewhere. I think it's under the blur tool. Yeah, there's a sharpen tool. This doesn't work very well at all. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Filter, and we are going to Sharpen and Smart Sharpen. And this tends to work the best as long as you use it kind of sparingly. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit just so you can see his t-shirt there. And you'll notice that from here, I can go ahead and move these slider bars to make this look a little bit more profound. You don't want to do such an extreme job that it's going to give the picture kind of a whole, crazy photoshopped look. You want to make it subtle so it looks a wee bit sharper than it was. Okay, and even that might be a bit too much, but I wanted to show you exactly where that tool was, because occasionally you'll need to sharpen something, you will need to lighten something, you will need to colorize something a little bit to make it come back to life. Good luck!